Hello and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today I'll be meeting a guest who I previously interviewed. We talked about sickle cell anemia, but this time we'll be talking about how do you adapt with change. She's gone through various challenges of having a chronic illness like sickle cell anemia and also having a disability from the illness. But she's learned to adapt and become the best version of herself. Meet Toyin. Well, hello everyone again. Welcome Toyin to our Painless Universal show. She was previously here when she talked about she talked about living with chronic illness, sickle cell anemia, and how she manages the challenges on her everyday life. But one thing we thought we would do a part two, Toyin, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you all the way from Nigeria to join me today, because I think we all live with a serious condition, and it doesn't matter what it is. And some people's serious condition would just be not being able to adapt about changes in life. You were diagnosed with sickle cell, and I think if anyone doesn't know about this, should go back to part one, Toyin Adesina, where she talked about Adesola, sorry, Adesola, right? Where she talks very candidly, openly about living with sickle cell. But Toyin, thank you so much for joining me again. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yes. How is the weather keeping over in Nigeria? I hope you guys are having a restful.
It's okay. It's a bit sunny.
Yeah.
It's a bit sunny. I think we're entering the Hamatan dry season.
Yes.
Uh, so like for all warriors is to drink, 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 drink.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Now, Tony, it was really interesting when we started having our conversation, and you talked about living with sickle cell and the challenges that sickle cell has caused you. Just for recap purposes, can you just tell us a little bit about this challenge that living with sickle cell has caused?
Okay, multiple issues. One of them is the avascular necrosis, which is like the repetition of the bone breaking down due to oxygen and other issues. So I had a hip issue, which limited me to using crutches. Now I used crutches for a long time, but unfortunately, it made my shoulder have to bear weight of my body because I was using crutches, elbow crutches, for over 10, 12, 15 years, in fact. I started having avascular necrosis of the shoulder. And that led to me having to use a wheelchair, not just a regular wheelchair, but an electric wheelchair, because according to the orthopedic surgeon, even to use my shoulder to be wheeling the manual, turning the manual wheelchair might be a bit of pressure on my shoulder. So I had to use an electric wheelchair. Now, throughout my life, I've had so many issues, from the hip, adapting to using crutches, to the leg ulcers, adapting to dressing the wound myself, to even this one. And I've learned that a lot of times we go through so much, we don't know how to cope with it. That's how my experience has been. Definitely, there are periods that you go into depression, trying to understand what your body is going through, or your whole life is going through. But I've learned that it's how we deal with it that is important. And for a lot of us as sickle cell warriors, or even anybody with a chronic health condition, that you suddenly found that you have to pivot into certain situations, adapting and bouncing back to continue with whatever you're meant to do in your life is really challenging.
No, absolutely. I think even with current situation going on in the world right now, and in the UK, we're going through a current lockdown, and other parts of the world they're also experiencing the thing. I think people adapting to this current change is something that it's not easy to adapt to, because your usual
Yeah.
lifestyle, your usual way of doing things is just all of a sudden stopped. And I think this is so important why we're having this conversation today. When it comes to adapting, when you knew your life now has changed, that you now have to almost depend heavily, 100% on your wheelchair, how
Mm.
did you change yourself, your mindset around to kind of say, this is my new me and I have to now live by it. How,
Yeah.
how did you
Okay.
adapt to it?
First of all, I like to talk about, there's something that people go through that when they have, whether traumatic mental issues that affect their emotions and all that I go through. But we always relate it to if somebody dies or something. But when there's a health change or a health pivot in your life, you also go through it, and that is grief.
Yeah.
Now, there's different stages of grief, and the first stage is where you are in denial. No, this is not me. This can't be happening to me. Which is basically what I went through. I For that period, I was like, no, no, I'm not going to listen to doctors. I'm going to continue walking with my crutches. I can't. How can I move around? I'm somebody who is very active. How
Yeah.
can you now tell me to limit myself to wheelchair in a country that is not disability friendly? So I went through that denial stage, isolating myself, and all that. So, it was really challenging for me. Then I went through the anger of the why me. I have had gone through so much already. Why does this have to happen to me? I just recovered from almost 3 months in hospital, staying in hospital because I had my doctor always makes this joke that why is it me that I always have all the things they can pick up, and I had what you call shingles, and that is it affects your nerve. So no opioid can deal with the pain, and it's extremely painful. So I was 3 months there, and I was like, you're now telling me I'm going to have to limit myself to a wheelchair. So I went through the why me stage, angry at everything, upset. Then you get to the bargaining stage, as I said, and you say, "Oh God, if I do this, can you get my health back and all that?" So I had that issue of, okay, God, maybe if I don't work too much, I can still do stuff around without using the wheelchair and all that stuff.
Mm.
And then I got to depression, real depression, and people didn't understand because people have a perception of me, which of course I know I am, but I think people around me forget that even though I am a strong woman in quotes,
Yeah.
we still have our frailties. There are times that we feel down and everything, and that's why I always tell people it's important to notice people you are close to when they are going through depression, when they are being sad, when they start isolating themselves from things, not wanting to do things as before,
Mm.
and people just thought, oh, nobody but that asked me, Toyin, how are you coping with this new lifestyle of using wheelchair? I got so upset that I isolated myself from the church. I left church because nobody in my church even bothered asking me to know what I was going through. They
Wow.
figured typical strong woman, she's able to cope, but I wasn't coping. I was crying for help, you
Yeah.
know, till I happened to visit a church. A friend invited me, and that's when I was able to tell my challenges, and I found that support system I needed. And that's when I now began to accept my situation. I now began to find ways in dealing with, okay, yes, so you're going to be using a wheelchair. What do you need? You need a support system who's going to help you as you're moving around with your wheelchair from place to place.
Mm.
Do you have to go everywhere all the time? Can you make use of the internet to do some things so that it will limit your movement? In the office, can you get a stair lift so that you can be moving up and down? So I started having to look for alternatives. I know some people cannot afford stair lifts and all that, but can you do it on the ground floor? Can you have a situation where everything is on the ground floor? Can you get a carpenter to do a wooden ramp so you can enter places that have low steps and all that? And I had to now start strategizing and finding ways to go around that. But a lot of the times, um, a lot of us don't go through this process
Mm.
to the period of acceptance. We are mostly dangling between anger, bargaining, and depression. In fact, more like anger, why me? I'm blaming the whole world, blaming our parents, blaming society, and then you enter depression. And when you enter depression, because I've been depressed twice in my life, and it's very difficult to get out of, especially if you don't know the signs.
Mm.
It's very, very, very difficult to get out of. It's not sadness. People always think, okay, it's sad. Sadness is a temporary thing. No, depression, you find yourself isolating yourself from people. You want to be alone. You want to do things alone. You're not even interested in doing anything you usually used to do. Everything seems like, why bother? Life is not what it's not as if I'm achieving anything in my life at the end of the day. So one has to be very careful when you get to that stage. That's why I always say look for support. Our support system is very integral in our growth mentally and physically. I always tell young warriors that if you don't have it in your family, get it somewhere else, whether it's in a sickle cell club, whether it's church members, but ensure you get it. You cannot deal with this situation alone. It's not possible. It's not possible. And you don't want people around you that would sympathize. You want empathy, because empathy brings encouragement. Oh, I understand what you're going through, but I know you can do it. And definitely it's difficult, but it's something that you have to be intentional about. There's no hard and fast rule about it. And I find that unfortunately, a lot of us as warriors, when we reach this anger stage and bargaining stage and depressive stage, we give up. We
Yeah.
feel nobody loves me anyway.
Yeah.
There's nothing, what am I doing with my life? I'm
No,
continuing.
I yeah, I really agree with what you're saying because I think in all circumstances and especially more with people with chronic illness, there's always that nag back and looking back where you feel
Mm,
that the world is just everything is on you and you're dealing with the whole world's problem. So in
exactly.
your strategy of finding your joy while you were going through all this negativity in your mind, how did you come out of it and finally find? I know you said you used the support network, but we're currently going through so many issues around the world. People losing jobs, people are unhappy, people are in abusive
Mm.
relationship and they're happy because they can't get out of it. People with chronic illness are unhappy because they just don't know what next for them. You, you who have been through things like this, what would you say to people right now?
I'll tell them that they need to learn how to be resilient. Issues come up. Even when I talk to people with sickle cell, I said, look, you're not the only one with the health condition. There are people I've seen with health conditions that I thank God for my own. And
Mm,
that's the reality. But we have to learn to know how to bounce back. And that comes to first understanding your why and how. Why is this happening to me? Uh, is there a lesson I can learn through this that would help me to pivot to whatever I'm doing? Yes, it happened, but what can I pick from it, and what can I use to strengthen me to be able to bounce back and move on? Then once you understand that why, you ask your how. Okay, how will I pivot around these issues? How will I bounce back? Okay, like for me with the wheelchair. Okay, so how am I going to? Okay, that's my reality. I've accepted that this is it. And accepting doesn't mean giving up. Accepting means that you begin to understand how you're going to use that situation to go around and manage your whole life around it. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're recognizing that it's there and recognizing the fact that, okay, this is your reality. What am I going to do about it? But a lot of us, we don't do that. So you have to understand your why and your how. How am I going to do this? How am I going to, okay, this is my reality. I can't walk from point A to or do 100 kilometers. How am I going to manage it? And then, like I said previously before, I had a bucket, like I think I was telling somebody, I had a bucket list. And one of my bucket list was to run the marathon, 10K kilometers. With the wheelchair, I was able to do that. So always try and see, even if it's negative, try and see the good in that. Whatever situation. I know it's hard, but there's always something positive to look in the situation. Then build a good support system. I've said that. I cannot overemphasize that. It's very important. Without that support system, it's not possible for us to be able to manage ourselves. Because when you are down, you need that person who's able to lift you up. When you need somebody to talk to, that person is there for you and there to support you and help you along the way, every step of the way. Then another thing I'll suggest is have a journal to pen down our emotions. How am I feeling today? It's okay to be depressed
Yes.
at a period, but learning to recognize that you're depressed and finding out ways to stop you from going into further depression is important. Even if you are sad for one day, it's okay. I'm not saying every day will be positive, no. But when you now pen down your emotion, oh, I'm angry today, I'm sad today, I'm joyful today, I'm hopeful tomorrow, when you start writing and penning down all your pains, your challenges, even your positives, you begin to realize that there are moments in your life that you can be thankful for. But when you don't put down these things, you just think, oh, what is there to be thankful for? I remember when I used to write my journal, I used to think before then that my whole life was worthless. But as I began to pen down issues, I now started recognizing that, wow, things are not bad, especially when comparing it to other people. Some people were not fortunate to even have families that even support them. But I have, that's something I'm thankful for, you know. So it's very important we write down these things, write down our pains, not just emotional pains, but even the physical pain. How is my body feeling today? Does it mean I need to rest? Does it mean I need to go see the doctor and monitor my health? This is very important for us. Then for me, another thing I talked about to someone was that I realized when we are in a situation, recognizing that it's not all about us, but about other people, it's very important. Sometimes we get so swallowed up by our grief, our negative pain, and all that, that we forget that the next person to you is maybe going through far worse.
Yes.
And when I started impacting other people's lives, that's when my thought pattern changed. That's when I realized that, wow, I may think I have problems, but this other person has far worse problems than I have. And there's joy in giving back. There's
Yes.
joy in making a difference. You tend to forget your issues. And that's one thing about me. They make fun of me that even when I'm in hospital,
Yes.
I'm on my laptop typing away, trying to strategize, okay, how can we help this person? How can we do this? How can we do that? And that pushes away and your focus away from your issues
Mm.
onto another person, because you know that there's joy in when you're giving back to somebody. And when that person comes back to say, thank you, you helped me so much, whatever you're going through, it becomes minute in
It's
people's in your eyes, sorry. So it's very important we think of giving back to other people. Sometimes we think we don't have a story. Sometimes we think we don't have anything to offer. But your own personal experience can help somebody go through challenges that you think are not relevant. Oh, that one is not as bad as what I was going through. That kind of
yeah.
you be thinking that, what's your own? That one is a small thing. I went through this. So you realize you're now encouraging somebody, and that impacts your own life as well.
Yeah.
And then in terms of your own health, understand your own body. What is your capacity to cope?
Yes.
A lot of times we push ourselves because we're trying to prove to other people that we're superman or superwoman. But the
Yes.
reality is that in that process, you may stress yourself out. And
Yes.
I've noticed that sometimes these people couldn't even care less. But it's your own mindset that is believing, even if they say negative things to you. I always make this joke. If you, I'm sure when you listen to the part one of this thing, that when I entered university, my friends were already almost starting to build their own career. But now, when I compare myself to now, and then those friends that I thought were building that were building their career, we're either almost on the same level, or even some I'm higher than. So I always say it's not how fast or how short you do it, but how well, and the outcome that you get from whatever you are doing. So it's very important that we understand our body, understand our health, understand what triggers our crises, what we shouldn't do. Don't compare yourself to the other person. Everybody's experience is different. Like they say, one man's meat is another man's poison, So
Yeah.
you need to understand what your capacity is
Thank you
during
so much.
every situation. And that's what I was
Yeah.
able to do with myself.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Tonya. I think you were able to address the critical issue and the question that is burning in everybody's mind is adaptability. How do you adapt and key things to do? We finalize, how is Tonya herself doing today?
Oh, Toy is drained. She's drained, she's overwhelmed, but also optimistic. Sometimes the negativities of all the goings on, you'll be thinking like, how am I going to achieve this? Yesterday, I just learned that somebody, not one of our members, but person fell sick, and the PCB was five, HP was 5%, and they didn't rush her to the hospital on time, and they had other complications, and the poor girl passed away. And you learn these things, and you think we've been educating these parents a lot. On what to do, that no matter this challenge, don't wait till the last minute when it's really bad to take the child to the hospital. And then you feel that you'll be repeating these things and people are still doing the same thing. You begin to wonder that, is what I'm doing okay?
Yeah,
But that's where you have to just persevere, and that's where the resilient spirit comes, because we shouldn't look at it that, okay, this person was not helped, but maybe the next person can be helped.
exactly. That's true.
It's not everybody. I've learned it's not everybody in this world we can help, but if it's just one person at a time, it will help us a great deal mentally and physically as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear at least you're doing okay. I know it's not great because, sadly, the young lady who passed away, we always miss a warrior whenever one, you know,
Mm.
gets her wings. But thank goodness you are okay and keeping well. For someone your age, you have done and you've shined the light to so many people like myself that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much, Tony, for this amazing conversation and lessons you've taught us. And I'm sure we'll be catching up again soon. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.